And thank you very much for this invitation to be here. I love a gathering where giving a keynote address you can wear shorts and sandals. I wish I had more groups that was the dress code. As we gather, this has been such a momentous week with Supreme Court rulings, terrible ruling on Voting Rights Act, better but not great on marriage equality, DOMA, and Prop 8. Could have been better, but pretty good. And I know that those rulings are on our mind. Much else is going on this week, and I would ask that we just pause for a moment of silence as we hold in our hearts and minds both events going on, one in South Africa with Nelson Mandela being close to death. And I ask that we hold him and his family and all of South Africa and well beyond Nelson Mandela at this time. Also going on, of course, is the Zimmerman trial for the murder of Trayvon Martin. And so as we gather to talk about what doing justice might mean, let us remember those as well. Let's just take a moment for a moment of silence. Thank you. For me, the title is always the hardest thing to come up with. And I actually have a title for my remarks this morning, and it is this: Enlarging the Justice Agenda. Why marriage is good, but not good enough. The theme of this national gathering, God's vision, do justice, echoes the biblical mandate to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with the God of the prophets and of Jesus. Standing within that tradition, we are made bold by a gospel invitation to live large and trouble the waters whenever we can, so that a new heaven and a new earth can be born. At the heart of Christian spirituality is a call to seek justice, to engage together in the never-ending struggle to correct wrongs and build up community. To our surprise and delight, justice-making is where many of us have most come alive. In claiming abundant life, not only for others, but also for ourselves, we've discovered our spiritual power and our moral integrity. Now, looking out on this audience, I recognize an assembly of social mystics when I see one. Those who gladly celebrate and give thanks that in the midst of the often messy, ambiguous, and demanding work of justice, we are blessed to encounter the still speaking God. Who knew? Who knew? As a cisgender gay man and theological educator for justice, I realize that justice making gives us a whole lot of things to be talking about this morning, but far more than any one person or any one speech can or should encompass. So I want to say some things and then have conversation with one another. But as a way to begin, we might acknowledge that within the Christian tradition, not everyone agrees that at the very heart of God lies this life-altering quest for justice, this sacred calling to be in right relation with ourselves, with other persons, with the earth, and with the divine. Now, as Dan McGuire, a progressive Roman Catholic theologian, has observed, the good news is that from the very beginning, there has never been only one Christianity, but rather a contest among multiple, conflicting, often irreconcilable Christianities. While yes, it's true that some Christians rejected slavery as a social practice, other Christians were slave owners, and many others defended slaveocracy as divinely ordained. But the fact of the matter is that you can't preach slavery and the gospel of freedom at the same time. So when it comes to religion, there is always a fundamental moral and spiritual choice to be made. Always. Now, in terms of our personal well-being and the vitality of our communities, it matters greatly the kind of religiosity we embody. Does our faith spark in us an unquenchable desire for justice and mercy in all things? Does it sustain us to stay in the struggle till at last all persons will be secure in their dignity and enjoy the economic, political, and cultural conditions that allow human life to flourish? Does our faith allow us to cast off shame, to lift up our heads, to be grateful that we are gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender persons, as well as our allies, and claim our rightful place, not below, not above, but alongside others? As queer people of faith, we must refuse to settle for anything less. Gary Comstock hits the nail on the head in his older and still wonderful book, Gay Theology Without Apology, when he wrote this: "If there is a single Christian duty, task, or project, it is not to give to others, but rather to create and be in community in which people can give, contribute, and feel valuable." Thank you. Any spirituality that is not passionate about justice, any spirituality that does not allow us to give, contribute, and feel valuable in our intimate connections, congregations, and communities, well, it's simply no longer worth our bother. And what then are the fruits of justice spirituality? Two, I think, stand out. The first is solidarity, or new life in community. And the second is the gift of having our peace disturbed over and over again, so that perpetually we will get ourselves into all kinds of trouble. Now, Southern writer Flannery O'Connor is reported to have quipped, "You will know the truth, and the truth will make you odd." Now, I'd put it this way: if we love God and desire God's justice for all, then in seeking to live that truth, the truth will make us queer. Now, in my lexicon, being queer says something about gender and sexual identities. But queerness is far more about our spirituality, our politics, and our moral commitments. In a world torn apart because of class, race, and other kinds of inequities, coming out as queer places us intentionally, passionately on the side of justice as well as on the side of love. Each and every day, an unjust world is widening the gap between the grossly affluent and everyone else. A divisive color line is intertwined with a persistent economic class line that privileges the few at the expense of the vast majority. Rampant violence is directed at women, children, and men without power and status. All the while, an environmental crisis imperils the Earth's sustainability. Disrespect, disempowerment, and cultural as well as economic marginalization are increasingly the lot of all but the rich and famous. In this context, standing up for Earth justice and people justice and committing our life energy to rebuilding community is profoundly countercultural. And at the same time, if, against all odds, queer people also manage to revel in our remarkable beauty and shamelessly take delight in the erotic power of our desires, especially our lust for a life abundantly shared with others, well then that's not only countercultural, it's also joyfully and disruptively queer.